Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a quick look at Bitcoin, and we're going to have a look at XRP on this video because last night in the live stream, I suppose we were saying that, in long story short, in summary, Bitcoin it does look like it's basically going to go sideways for a little while, maybe even a month or two, or three perhaps. I mean, we're basically anticipating a confirmed local low, which might already be in. Which will then lend itself to a period of reaccumulation. But until moving averages on these on the daily especially start to level out, it's essentially a guessing game that this is going to be an accumulation. What we want to see is these moving averages slide down, go horizontal, merge into one, and basically price action go above and below and above and below, frustrating the hell out of everybody, boring everybody to death. And during those times of boredom, we have seen in the past periods of alt rallies. So I'm not referring to any kind of alt season. We're going to judge everything based upon the strength of the chart versus not USDT particularly, but Bitcoin. So we'll see which ones are strongest versus Bitcoin. See if there's anything that suggests any signals. And we did go through quite a lot of these charts yesterday, and it's interesting to see how they are different. So no altcoin is particularly created equal, and these charts definitely suggest that some are strong, some are weak, some are in the middle, but none of them really indicate any specific signals, as in like, let's go crazy, we're going to go and do a 2 or 3 or a 4x. Nothing that we saw last night suggested that. So a period of recovery, reaccumulation for Bitcoin and for a lot of altcoins, but there are some that, again, when we look at them versus the Bitcoin parents, look strong. So I mean, if we look at XRP for instance, you wouldn't look at this chart and go, that's particularly strong, we're in the lower portion of the Bollinger Band, but the setup itself is quite good as far as moving averages, more or less all in the right place. Little higgledy-piggledy since the breakdown here, but we still have the 200, the 50, then we got the 10, and then the 20, so they're not in the right place, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Technically, it does appear that it's, obviously we broke down significantly here, but it does appear that we're trying to continue with this uptrend versus Bitcoin, which is the sort of thing that we're trying to go for. So if we look at this on the daily, then what we first of all need to do is reclaim this center of this Bollinger Band, the 20, and that would then lend itself to more consistent uptrend versus Bitcoin. But as far as signals are concerned, not really. There's nothing really here of any significance. Just a choppy uptrend essentially that's still in a recovery phase. Now the MACD's turning up, the RSI's turning up, the money flow index is turning up, and the volume's always high on XRP. What I really want to see is this portion of the itchy cloud go green, and then we should be in for another move. Once this is green, it would be a signal in itself, but it's not there yet. Probably won't be there for a few days, but at some point towards the end of the week could actually get that, and that should be an indicator to suggest not a trend continuation, but at least another big move. But I'm not talking about those epic, massive, big moves that XRP does. But it's not showing particular signs of weakness at this level. This is versus Bitcoin. We look at it on Tether, kind of a different story. We'll go down to the daily first of all. And on Tether, it's not particularly strong at all. It's kind of weak. So on the daily here, we did bounce from the 200 exponential. Again, something that I've said, and I will always say it, XRP and the 200 exponential, they have a very, very strong relationship. This is where we generally would reaccumulate after any pump. Historically, this is how it happened. So bing, bang, bing, bang, bing, bang. So are we going to come back down to test it is the main question. There's no real answer to that. As far as this chart is concerned, it does lend itself to a further retest, and this is how the 200 exponential gets played. It doesn't just hit it and bounce. If we look at this first rally that we had, we bounced from it, came back below it, above it, down to it, test it. We had plenty of opportunity to reaccumulate here. This one was slightly worse because of the SEC lawsuit and the extra FUD knocking it over the cliff. It was always going to come down to this level, but we actually broke down below it and actually rejected from it a couple of times before we finally, well, this doesn't really count. This was a bit of a this is the pump group sort of situation, but the idea is that, the 200 exponential and price action were reunited. And on the way up here, I said, look, it's going to happen again. We will come down to the 200 exponential. It's going to happen. And you probably get a few opportunities to buy it around that zone anyway. So touched it, And it wouldn't surprise me at all if we did touch it again. And obviously, this moves up slowly every day. Currently, we're at 78,000. 78,000, my God. 78 cents, almost 79 cents. You know, once this moves up and snakes up over time, you know, this line here represents the giant fib retracement, the overall accumulation zone from the macro size scale. So if we can get our 200 exponential to that level, 86 cents is a very strong support, so would this also be that. And if Bitcoin goes sideways and maybe even sideways and down, or especially if Bitcoin comes down again, which it probably will, you know, we're ranging at the end of the day around $33,000. That's generally the area where I think it's going to reaccumulate, whether it's above it or below it, or generally around that vibe. That's kind of my expectation. That's based mostly upon the fact that the green 50 exponential is hanging around at that level, and this might not, you know, mean much, but on the weekly, a green 50 exponential moving average is actually kind of a big deal. If we have a look here on Bitstamp, we've got a long chart here about a 9-year history. We can see that bull markets like to stay above it, even in bear markets when they first kick in. This is the bubble pop 2013. Well, before then we came down, ricocheted from it twice and launched. Breakdown here on the bubble pop, big bounce, that was 100%, and so on and so on and so on. Again, bubble pop 2017, big bounce here. Generally, you know, we do remain above it for the vast majority of the time. So that is 33,000, give or take. That's kind of where we are. So I'm holding a lot of weight onto this zone as the accumulation zone. We can have wicks below it, so long as we have candle bodies close above it. I'm okay to say no to a bear market. If we start closing below it and getting rejected from it, I do have to entertain the very realistic prospect that there could be a bear market. But for the moment, there's nothing here that says bear market, not yet. There's clues to suggest that there could be one, but there's not one yet. So just to recap on XRP, this accumulation zone is also the same kind of deal. The 200 exponential will probably be tagged again at some point, but there's no guarantees. But this has always been the case for XRP. You're going to get that opportunity at 200 exponential, whether you want to catch the knife or you want to pick it up slowly, dollar cost average at the lower zones. Between 86 cents, 88 to 86 is one zone that you could think about picking it up at, and if you really want to be conservative and expect the worst, you would probably have buy orders around this 200 exponential, which is about 79 cents, give or take. Now, if we just go to Bitcoin again, Bitcoin pairing, we can have a look at what could end up being a really, really good signal. And again, we've been looking at this for a couple of weeks now. What we want to see is price action above the cloud, GQ span above the cloud, and this portion of the cloud go green. Because this is on a weekly, it would lend itself to a really big move. One of those moves that XRP likes to do. And I say it all the time on my channel. We don't trade signals until signals have been created. We don't anticipate signals. That's not one way to actually do trades. Investment in XRP is a different story altogether. I like XRP. I always have. I've studied the market cycle. I'm very confident in it. It's played out pretty well, considering that my original videos on it more or less anticipated that it's coming into a bullish phase, whereas most people thought it was a write-off and completely dead. Even to the point where we are right now, we're still 10x up from our lows, which is about a little bit better than Bitcoin actually. In the March crash, Bitcoin is they're both about 10x. So when people say XRP is dead, I mean, you just have to remind them that it's basically performing in the same way, maybe a tiny little bit better than Bitcoin has. So there, to all you haters. So what we're looking for here is probably going to take maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. Again, we trade the signal when it's created, and this signal that will be created when this Chiku span, this little skinny portion of the itchy cloud, closes above the cloud. Also, price has to close above the cloud, and this portion of the cloud needs to go green. I would expect a big move at that point. Maybe getting close to its all-time high. Might be a bit much to ask, but it's hard to say, because when XRP does run and does do rallies, it does do 100% most of the time. In fact, if we look back at these last previous rallies, I mean, they've been bigger each single time. I mean, that was about 70%. This was about 100 and some. Oh no, it's much bigger than that. 200%. And where, I mean, the question is, where do you measure this one from, really? I mean, do we measure it from the actual massive breakout, or do you measure it from the last time it tagged the 50 exponential? Either way, you can see what I'm saying. They do get bigger each time. So if we did have another launch pad, even from the price that we're at right now, 200, 250%, that is all-time high kind of area. And that's what I would expect when we get that signal on the weekly. And like I say, we haven't got the signal on the weekly yet, but it will likely shape up to give us that signal on the weekly. We've got all components brewing to suggest that that's going to happen. So Chiku span above the cloud, we've got the cross already, and we're waiting for this portion of the cloud to go green, plus closing a weekly candle above the cloud, and that will lend itself to another one of those big XRP moves. But until we get the signal, it's just a wait and see. Maybe buying down at the lows. If we're lucky enough to get down to the 200 exponential again, perhaps maybe take a gamble on it, which is what I'll be doing. I haven't bought any XRP in quite a long time, because the overall analysis that I provided and stuck to basically bought in at the low levels of the accumulation. So you know, between 17 and about, I think probably about 29 cents overall. It's very difficult to say because it's a long time since I did it now, and so I just leave a lot of that to ride. But when a signal like this comes to fruition, it's one that shouldn't really be ignored. So I'll be waiting patiently for that, and because it's a weekly signal, it generally gives us a lot of time to enter, because it is a weekly. You know, you can have a signal on a weekly chart, and it can take a month to play out or more sometimes. The fact is, it's a strong signal when it does take place, and I'll be keeping a very close eye on it, because it is getting close to creating that kind of signal. And when I say close, I'm talking 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. But this is the game you play. You know, this is what TA is. Yeah, a lot of TA is about waiting and watching. Patience is an enormous component to doing a successful trade. Anyway, I'm going to leave it with you there. But thank you for watching. Hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.